Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Fish on. Yeah. Oh, my God. Good night. Look at that tank. That's a toad, brother. Golly.
All righty, Mr. Chad, are you ready to do this?
Man, I'm ready, but really tonight I'm not doing it. We're going to be listening to the anglers who just did well. First and foremost, we got Chris Spencer, who just did a clean sweep. He won the Pro Series, the Saturday Trail Series, and the Sunday Trail Series out at Folsom Lake and in Placer Valley, California. And then after we give Chris however much time he wants to use to talk about his win, what he learned, what he would do different, what he's glad he did, things like that. Then we're going to bring on none other than Mr. Cody Henley, who is fresh off of not only winning the DZ KBF to 10, not only doing well in the Trail Series, not only that, but he took off on a road trip, went and did well in a Bass Nation Kayak Series event, went and did well in a Hobie event. Like, I think the guy just made enough money to pretty much coast the rest of the year if he really needs to. So anyway, we'll be bringing Cody on after that. So honestly, I know that you're getting axes thrown at kids or something. Is that what you told me earlier on?
So I'm at probably one of the coolest places in entire South Florida. It's called Off the Wall. We have trampolines over here. I've got an adult-only area that's got like axe throwing, miniature golf, ping pong tables. So when you come down here, we're going to make it happen. You're going to be throwing some axes down here and making it happen.
See, I had it backwards. You said there was a kid's place with axe throwing, and I thought you got to throw the axes at the kids. That sounded way more fun than what you just explained. But anyway, it's still good. So, man,
Totally.
Let's do this, Randy. Let's just get Chris on here, and let's just talk about his experience at Folsom, man.
All right, I'm going to dive in. I'm going to bring in Chris, and you can talk together.
All right, sounds good, man. Here we go. So, Chris, welcome to the show, man. Look, I need to set the table here. On Saturday, you won the Trail Series event by 1/4 inch, right?
Yep.
On Sunday, you won it by 2.5.
Yep.
But you won the Pro Series by like 22 inches and some change. All right. That's impressive. Now, granted, there was only 3 people in the Pro Series. And I know a lot of people are poo-pooing on certain things. Oh, you always got the negative people out there. But the fact of the matter is, that's how many people signed up. KBF is investing in the West. We're providing these opportunities. You got just as many points for winning that event as somebody who's going to win an event with 100 people in it. But you launched at a lake with a single launch, which is unique to the KBF Trail Series.
Yep.
I looked at the leaderboard all through the weekend, and there's a lot of unfamiliar names, right? Because I say unfamiliar. I'm familiar with them because I've followed Western kayak fishing for a long time, but not as familiar to people on the national scene. So on day one, you finished first, and Gino Magno finished second, right, by 1/4 inch. Yep. John Bozang was in second. I think Danny Miller was in third. And then Gino was in fourth. Gino Magno was in fourth. I don't know exactly what the relationship is there. I think it's father and son, right?
I'm not sure either.
Okay, I think they're father and son. And then Damian Tao rounded out the top 5. And then on Sunday, you were in first. Gino moved up to second. Damian was in third. Danny Miller was in fourth, I think. And then Ron Lewis rounded out the top 5. But that being said, you won Trail 1, Trail 2, and you won. Obviously, when you win Trail 1 and you win Trail 2, it's really hard for somebody else to win the Pro Series unless they entered the Pro Series and didn't enter the Trail. But odds are you were still going to sweep that weekend. So man, listen, I'm going to turn it over to you. Talk to us about your weekend. Talk to us about what you caught them on, what adjustments you made that were critical. But when you're done, where I think anglers really do the best of getting better and better after each tournament is what they do after the fact. And a lot of times if somebody wins an event, they always kind of go, they did everything that they possibly could. I want to know what, if you had it to do over again, because your limit went up on day 2, and we don't always see that, right? A lot of times we see a really big limit on Saturday and a lesser limit on Sunday. So the fact that your limit went up was pretty impressive. It's not that common for that to happen. People see your spots, people get things figured out. You sore mouth your fish, you fish through the fish that you had in your spot. So talk to us about all of that, man. Talk to me about what you did well. And if you had it to do over again, even though you won, what would you do different?
Well, let me give you just a little bit of the beginning. I'd never been on this lake before at all. I'd never seen it. The only knowledge I had was what I was able to pull up on Google Earth and an avionics map. And I happened to download a map in my graph unit. And that's all I had to work off before going down there. I showed up Wednesday night, got on the water, and it wasn't anything like I had anticipated it to be. And I went up about 3 miles, checked some areas out, looked at some of the points that I graphed, and realized that what I was anticipating the lake to be is not what it was. And
all right, so let me stop you for a second. What did you have it made up to be? And then what did you find?
So when I initially did my research, I was looking off of maps when the water was low, and had found all these granite rock piles, bedrock, pieces of structure. And I kind of figured that these fish were going to hold at some point on the structure, but we were also coming into pre-spawn. So we should have fish moving out of the lake. They should be moving up to main lake points and into secondary points, getting ready to go to the back of coves. And there just wasn't fish there. And it kind of threw me for a minute. And I was looking at the water temperatures. I'm like, this water's cold. It's not as warm as it should be. Something's happened 2 weeks prior when I was getting some information on what was going on. And I knew I had to change my strategy. I knew what I had planned on was not going to work. And so Thursday, I decided to make a run and just cover water. And the whole idea behind the covering the water was let's find fish, and let's find fish that are active. And when you've done it for a while, you kind of know, you can see fish sitting in one spot and know that they're probably not active. And you can see other fish the minute you go over them, you know they're going to bite. And I started going around looking for that. And in the process of looking, I wasn't finding a whole lot. In fact, I found schools of bait fish with no bass under them. And I knew, like, we were right in that transition. We were right there where these fish are just coming out of the deep, and they are just getting ready to start pushing up to the points. And I've got to find that middle ground where they're at. And I covered almost 15 miles, I think, on Thursday, and did very little fishing. I caught a little bit of the area that I was kind of looking at, but I didn't find what I wanted. And that's a lot of water to cover and not find anything to fish after. And Friday I made a whole nother run and just decided I'm going to take a winter strategy approach, and I'm going to go look for winter fish and then see if I can find that line where these fish are moving out. And while I was doing that, I happened to graft over a spot. And what I didn't realize is this spot is a community hole. And there are a group of people that know about it, but not everybody fishes it. Folsom has a bad rap, and I don't think it needs a bad rap. I tested these fish the minute I came over. I knew they were active, but I dropped the drop shot down, and it's one of those things. That fish was coming up before it was even at the bottom, and it was 30 feet of water, and that drop shot's at 15 feet, and I've got fish coming up 15 feet. So I knew it was game on, and I stuck one fish there, checked to see if another one would follow behind it, and it would, and I left it alone. I didn't touch it again. And I just decided that's where I'm going first day of the tournament. I'm going to hit there. And I didn't know enough about the lake yet, but I did know that the wind blew every morning, and around 10 o'clock it shut off. And tournament morning, that's exactly what happened. The wind blew, I caught fish quick, I got a limit quick, and the minute the wind shut off, the fish quit biting. And that told me right then and there that lake sets up based on current. And I tried to make the best of it, but I don't know, there was a little bit of drama that went on. I got a phone call from Amanda and some other stuff, and it threw me out of my mental game. It kind of threw me off the path I was on. And it took a little bit to start pulling myself back together. When you got a phone that's sitting at 33%, you still got 4 hours of a tournament to go. and you're being challenged, it was hard to keep the head in the game, but I decided to give it my best, and I went and started checking out some other spots, knowing that I was sitting okay, but I needed something for day 2. And I started checking some other points. And
so stop right there for a second.
Yeah.
This is the thing that always intrigues me about anglers who consistently do well. And I think this is what separates the top 5% from everybody else. You already caught your fish on day 1. You're fishing in a 2-day tournament. You're fishing in the Pro Series tournament, which is a 2-day tournament, but you're fishing 2 one-day tournaments. While you're in tournament 1, you're basically looking for fish for day 2, right?
Yep.
That's varsity.
Always looking.
That's varsity, just so you know.
Yep.
Now,
and you're trying to figure the conditions out at the same time too.
I want to back you up one more thing too that you said, because you alluded to it early on, and then you kind of elaborated on it a little bit more. And I think this is a really big mistake people make with electronics, and especially when they first start electronics fishing. I think if they find fish, that those fish are going to be catchable. Or if they find them and those fish aren't catchable, they think that all fish aren't catchable. So in the very beginning of your explanation, you said, I graphed over some fish, and you said, and you can tell the active fish from the fish that aren't. Now, you and I know what you're talking about, but I want you to explain that, because the whole value of these live streams like this for the consumers out there that are trying to learn how to be better tournament anglers, and to demonstrate the level of knowledge that guys like you have that go out and win these events. And we'll talk about the drama thing and the mental part and the confidence part and all that in a little bit. But talk to me about when you're graphing fish, right? What are you seeing that lets you know that those fish are active?
God, I could talk for an hour on this one. But no,
good.
I kind of divide it in 2 categories. You have fish that are oriented to something specific, like structure or a specific location, and then you have roaming fish. You have those schools that are moving around. They both kind of look a little bit different, but you can tell on either one of them. Fish that are stationary, like especially if they're on drops, it's really easy. When they're on drops, they tend to hang lower on the drop and tight to it. And those fish typically aren't active. The ones you want to find that are active are going to be out from the drop a little bit or up from the drop. And they're going to put some distance between them and the structure they're sitting on. And then you have those that are kind of on flat areas. They will pull a lot of times really tight to that bottom ground, or the hard bottom, sometimes clay, whatever it is. They're going to pull tight to it. And you'll go over, and it's not much. I mean, you're talking a fish raising an inch means the difference between an active fish and an inactive fish. An inactive fish is going to hold real tight. An active fish is going to be up just a little bit. And the easiest way from there to test is to start putting a bait down and see if they're even interested. A lot of times a fish that's not interested, not even going to come look at it. They might just swim off. Where an active fish look at that bait, and a lot of times they're going to come look at it before it ever hits the bottom. They want to know what's there. They're ready to eat. Moving fish, if they're just kind of stationary, they're just kind of one level. It's kind of hit and miss. The school's just not fired up. When you get a school fired up, you're going to see them spread across the water column. And you're going to see them at different levels, and you're going to see them transitioning between that level, moving up a foot or dropping a foot. And it's kind of learned from watching. If you don't look at it and don't analyze it, when you look at it, you're going to miss it. At least a lot of it. I think you're going to miss it if you don't analyze it.
So when you find deep fish in the clear water fisheries and things like that, do you ever find that if you find, and this is something that I kind of pride myself on being able to do, if I find 2 or 3 inactive schools, I can fire a school up with like a lipless crank or a crankbait, or ripping something through there, like throwing a chatterbait out and just stopping it and things like that. Do you ever find that you can utilize the body language, if you will, the things that you see the fish doing, to know what you can do to get them to fire up?
Yep. You can. I mean, heck, you might have to throw a half a dozen baits before you find the one that is going to fire them up. And then a lot of times, if you can fire them up, they'll hit whatever. It's that competition factor between them. And you can tell that when you're throwing the bait. Do they duck down lower? I mean, if they duck lower, it's not what they want to hit. They're just going to move out of its way. If they're interested, you might see a chaser, and then all of a sudden you're going to see 2 streaking, 6-inch difference or whatever, kind of up on the graft, and you're going to know that you're working something that has potential to fire them up. That's the
Amen.
best way I can put it.
Yeah, and something else that I've noticed over the years is that if they move more than 2 body lengths, but they don't hit, they're not going to.
Yep.
They're if you look at the size of the dash, and if they move 2 of that and go back, or if they tilt up or tilt down and go back, if they tilt over and they keep coming, they're going to hit it. If they tilt over and then they level back out, or if they tilt up and they level back out, they're probably not going to do anything until you actively fire them up. So that's interesting that you made that adjustment, you made that observation. That came from pre-fishing. Pre-fishing is always, in my opinion, where the better anglers separate themselves from the anglers that don't put as much time into it. I don't really like lottery fishing per se. I like the anglers that go out there and develop a pattern and put the time in and things like that. And that's going to come into play with the ABA events with the off limits time. But it always also creates a really great conversation, because if the rules are the same for everybody, then that's the definition of fair, no matter how you slice it. But it's interesting that there was great weather on Folsom. And my understanding is that Folsom is not a great weather lake. It's better crappy weather lake. And so did that play into the psychology of your day, knowing that it was high pressure, bluebird, and all of those things? Because the pictures that I saw, I was like, oh my God, that looks like a resort.
It was the worst bluebird days you get. It's the ones where the wind stops.
Right.
Where it just goes dead.
Yeah, high pressure, bluebird, stagnant.
And the thing is, fish will still eat during those bluebird days. You just have to figure out the school or the groups that want to eat and what that pattern is. And I kind of didn't have that at first. And that first day I didn't have it either. I thought if I could just locate where these fish are moving off to once they quit biting, because I knew they were still hungry. They were hitting hard enough that I knew they still wanted to eat. And I thought for sure they were sliding off just back into deeper water, but I never could locate them once they quit biting. And then I started moving around and checking some other structure. And on day 1, later in the afternoon, when the wind finally started to come back up a little bit, I happened to catch a movement of one fish. It just took one fish to realize what happens on that lake. And I realized real quick with where I was at with this community hole, what I'd seen earlier, and then that fish at the end of day 1, that lake was very current dependent. Like it was unreal how current dependent it is actually. So day 2, I went to the same spot. I just so good in the morning. I'm like, I can go to that spot again and I can pull another limit despite having fished it once already. And it was a race. I wasn't the only one headed there on day 2. And I wasn't the fastest. It just happened to be the angles that other people came in at. I happened to sit right on the spot I wanted. And I can't remember if it was Alexander or someone else was sitting on my other waypoint. So we were fishing almost within casting distance of each other. And I pay attention to what's going on around me. And I still caught my fish, but I also watched what he caught. And the size changed. So day 1, I was catching a lot of cookie cutter fish. And I had a little bit better fish on day 1 than I did day 2, although I did catch a really good one on day 2. But the other guy that was fishing by me, I noticed the fish he was pulling up were a little smaller. And then my 5th fish in that spot came in at 14 inches, and that was my smallest one I'd caught. I knew the spot changed just from the size difference changing on the fish. Yeah, you'll get an intermix of big fish and small fish, but when you find a hole where the fish are moving and eating, they're typically in an age group.
Yeah.
And I knew that spot was going to die out real quick, and it did. The wind stopped, it changed, it started coming from the east. And I knew I wasn't going to pick up any other fish in that spot that I needed. And I started moving. And I took what I'd learned the day before with the current, and I went out and just started checking these humps. There's huge granite humps, fingers, ditches. And I started looking at anything that had the wind pushing up against it. It was coming out of the east. It was coming out pretty good. And I just started checking all those east-facing sides, looking for a bait or some active fish. I knew spots are kind of unique, and spots will eat and eat and eat. Other bass will eat too, but spots, they will gorge a school of fish and then will
throw it up
and hold on to it.
Yeah, or they'll throw it up and then eat again, So
I was looking. I knew I could find some active fish, and it took a while. I checked out, I think, 3 big, large humps. I even went as far as checking the backside to see if there was anything kind of sitting on the high end waiting for current to pull across the flat top. And I finally, towards the last hour of the tournament, I reached into a pocket, and I actually saw something on the bottom that kind of caught my interest. And I wasn't sure if it was a fish or not that was kind of stuck between two boulders, but I decided I was going to drop on it anyway. And it turns out it wasn't anything, but my phone rang, and I went to pull my phone out. And while I'm looking at my phone, I looked down at the graph, and there's a fish coming up. So I put the phone away and hooked a fish. And then I proceeded to make a phone call, and I called my buddy who had given me some information early on before tournament day. And he's asking how it's going. And I happen to look down again, and I go, I got to go. I've got 4 fish underneath me. And I put the phone down, and I didn't touch it again until basically in a tournament. But I had that whole last 45 minutes, I had fish under me, and they were stacking. They were getting competitive. They were stacking. I think I made 2 culls. I culled up twice right there, and that was enough. I think I'd fallen out of first place
twice
in Jackhammer. I'd fallen twice.
Yeah, twice. Yep.
And this gave me what I needed to get back up on top. And if I would have stuck to what I was doing like the day before and not moved, I wouldn't have caught the fish I needed. It was that key part in chasing fish and looking for those fish second day and catching that little bit of a break to realize how current dependent that reservoir was.
Well, you kind of answered my question about what adjustments would you make after the fact, because honestly, kudos for you for figuring it out during the event, because most people don't figure it out until it sets in after the event. Oh man, if I would have went and done this instead. So what were you catching the fish on?
I caught a couple fish on a drop shot. I caught one on a drop shot day 1, and then my cull-ups on day 2 were on drop shots. But my primary bait was a donkey rig.
Nice.
And that was the bait I used.
Unweighted donkey rig, just a standard?
No, it was weighted.
Oh, weighted.
It was
okay.
weighted. You had to get down 30 feet, so it was weighted. And I knew this kind of going in, but it's not something I throw a lot. And in talking with one of my buddies, he says, "Hey, tie this on. You might need it tomorrow. Just set it up this way." And I started thinking about it when I went to bed that night. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. We are on pressured fish. Every day we were out there were boats on every point. There were boats working the humps. There were boats working all over. And every day I was there, you could see boats working. And these fish are pressured. And a lot of guys were going to lighter line and some other things. And that doesn't mess with me. I fished lakes clearer than that lake. I wasn't worried about line size. I was worried about getting fish that had seen baits, trying to get something different to them. And I decided that night I'm gonna throw that donkey rig first thing in the morning when I know I'm on active fish, and I'm gonna see if it gets bit. And if it doesn't, I'm not out a lot of time. I can just move on and keep doing what I got to do. But I threw it out there on the first cast and got a double. It wasn't even, and after that, it wasn't even a question. And I think what it was, those fish weren't used to seeing 2 baits at the same time. They were used to seeing a single bait or a drop shot with a Ned rig under it. And throwing that donkey rig out with 2 baits, they just see that 2 baits and go, "This is safe to eat," and they grabbed it.
Yeah, and a donkey rig here where we're fishing right now at Lake Murray, with the bottom bait has an underspin on it, and then the other one's unweighted, is fire. It's like, especially up around the dam, and it catches a lot of good striper too. You know what I mean? It's a good. Yep. It's a really good setup. So, man, do you want to talk about the specific brand or type of lure that you're using, or is that kind of
they were Ned rigs. They were Ned rigs. There's nothing, okay. and that was what was funny. I don't know if you were following some of the drama. Apparently, having a second fish in the net on your boat gets a lot of attention. And
yeah.
And first, let me say this: if you're on the water fishing a tournament, you're more worried about what another guy has in his boat while you're fishing.
You're already beat.
At the end of the tournament, you've already lost.
You've already beat, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to get into the specifics of the drama, because the rule is that you can't keep the first fish that you caught to catch a second one. The idea behind that rule is that we don't want people catching the buck, holding on to it, trying to catch the female and doing that kind of thing, or just in general holding on to fish for the obvious reasons, fish sharing and other things.
Yep.
But when you're fishing a donkey rig or an Alabama rig, shoot, I catch 2 fish quite often on Tennessee River system lakes on a topwater. One will blow up on it, and the other one will be right behind it, grabbing the other piece of the bait sticking out of its mouth, and you got 2 baits there. Well, you caught both of those fish. As long as you process one, take the photo, get rid of it, process the other one, take the photo, you're good to go. Which is yet another reason why I'm starting to push very hard for video release, video verification.
The video saved me.
And things like that. And I tell people all the time, the video is not mandatory unless you want to cover your butt. If you want to cover your butt, my recommendation is that you video things. All right.
I kept it as a habit coming off the NC. I'm just going to video every fish I'm releasing. And when Amanda made that phone call and I told her what I caught him on, she asked, "You got the videos?" I said, "I got all the videos. I'll send them to you. I don't care."
And she called me and said, "Hey, listen, even if he didn't have the video, that doesn't necessarily mean it was going to be a problem. But this dude's got the video." And I said, "Hey, that's why I've been putting it out there." You know what I'm saying? We're probably 2 years away from it on the trail, and probably next year on the Pro Series, I'm going to require video verification. And, you know, on the Pro Series, my ultimate goal in 3 years is cast to CPR. You've got to have the video of the cast, the hook set, the catch, and the release. And so, is that a pipe dream? I don't know. A lot of people told me it was a pipe dream to pay $100,000 at a national championship, to create this series for kayak fishing, to have any pro series, much less to now have 3 really viable, you know, platforms. And so, man, I honestly got to say, dude, I was happy for you. It's always kind of bittersweet. Like, it's cool when somebody sweeps the event, and it's also kind of sucks because you feel like more people could have won. But hats off to you and kudos to you. It's also awesome to see guys from out in the West shoot up to the top of the leaderboards, to shoot up to the top of the Angler of the Year rankings, to be right there in the conversation. The guy that we're bringing on after you is opportunity personified. We did one event out in Utah where we went out and really invested in a trail series, or a partner series event, now Ambassador Series. That got people fired up about KBF. He drove to Clear Lake and did what you just did. He won basically the whole weekend. That gave him the confidence to go to Shreveport, kick butt there, and then turn around and then go down, win the 10, and then went back home, hitting tournaments and winning and placing all the way home. So Chris, what's next for you, right? What's your next
Roosevelt.
Step? Okay.
Heading to Roosevelt.
Now, were you going to go to Roosevelt before this event?
Yep.
Okay.
I've got my season's pretty much planned out. I may throw an extra tournament or 2 in, but I've got everything planned out all the way through the NC. So that's where I'm at.
So I'm going to leave you. I got one more question for you. That's my question, but I'm going to give you the floor, you know, for anything else that you want to talk about before I spring this last question on you. Anybody you want to thank, anything you want to talk about, the floor is yours, my friend. It's all you.
Dude, well, yeah, I'm going to thank the TD director that was out there in California. He was a good dude, and he put on a good event. I was a little nervous taking a single day launch with everybody else launching off, but it turned out to be pretty good. It was actually kind of cool to see. The national anthem was sung beforehand, and then it was a race. It was kind of fun. Would I want that on every tournament? Probably not, but it was something different, and it was an awesome event. I'm not sponsored yet, but I do have some companies that I think are key to what I do. And one of those is, of course, Motor Guide. I run a bow mount XI3 on the front, just like a lot of other guys do, which is helpful in the wind. And then my other big one is my electronics. I run Humminbird. I ran Humminbird for a number of years. I did switch for about 2 years and went right back because it's a name I trust. And they have an awesome feature, Chart Select. And that Chart Select was actually key in pinpointing the depth and the edges that I needed while I was out in Folsom. And it was absolutely phenomenal. I've had it for a while, but it was actually where I used it the most, I think. And I think it was a game changer. And other than that, I have to thank my family and some of those others. Hey, if you want to follow me though, man_VS_fishing on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, all of them.
And man,
so hit me up.
When we post this on YouTube after the fact, we will put that stuff in the description box for you folks that are watching this on YouTube. You can check out the link in the description box and just go follow Chris on social. So, you know, you mentioned map study and getting started and all that kind of stuff. So I really don't even have to, this isn't the question I was going to ask you, but I do want to tell folks, like, learning your units before you're on the water is key. I know people that don't know how to use the contour features, that don't know how to use the sensitivity settings and things like that. And this isn't me, you know, crapping on anybody or anything, but literally there's electronics courses you can take. There's a guy named Daryl Gleason, who's an Elite Series Pro, who has a course you can sign up for. High Tech Outdoors on Kentucky Lake has a really cool program in person. I think Dugout does a really cool course. Invest in your electronics, because I promise you, not the investment of purchasing them, you can do that too, but I'm just saying investing, learning them. Because if you don't know, you're wasting the money you spent on the unit. So it's good to hear someone talk about how critical that information was, especially on fishing pressured reservoirs, and especially on noticing those little subtle things that helped you make the adjustment that I literally called the winning adjustment, because it really was the difference between winning one tournament and being like, okay, so he won a tournament, and winning 2 tournaments and winning the Pro Series. So
I just want to touch one thing on that. When I got down there and saw the small roster, 4 on the Pro, about 20 in the trail, I was going, how am I going to make my money back down here on this? I've spent a lot to come down here, and I want to prove that I'm better than everyone else that's fishing down here. And on Friday at the last minute, I signed up for the Yab event. I wasn't even planning on fishing the Yab event, but I decided to sign up because then it gave me more competition. And I knew a lot of these guys knew that water, and some of them do. Some of them are good. I was a little nervous that some of them were going to catch me, but I had to put my skills up to everything that was down there. I just wanted to make sure that I had a good way to compare myself, and I wasn't selling myself short when I was there. So,
and the other thing that happens when we do that, and a lot of people don't understand it, is that now the people in that Yakabas event get to see themselves next to you as well and go, oh man, if I had just entered that event, I could have won this much more money, or so on and so forth. So it's a really good opportunity for people to kind of figure out where they're at. And like you said, it's an opportunity for you to figure out where you're at. Now, Here's the question. If you've ever watched me on anything, you know I like to put people on the spot. So I'm going to put you on the spot. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Are we going to see you in the 10 house in 2023?
I'm making a race with Cody for the points right now.
Okay.
I'm planning on being there. I've sat down, even my wife's helped me. We've sat down and crunched numbers to see where AOY's got to stand and how well you actually have to do at the national championship to get into the 10.
So that was kind of like are you a politician? Do you do politics for a living?
No, I hate politics.
So we've got a non-committal yes, is basically what you're saying. Like, you know what it takes, but you're not going to come out and
I know
say,
what it takes, and I am making a run for it.
Okay, so that's all.
I'm already going to be there, and I'm making a run for it.
That's fair enough. Well, man, listen, congratulations. You were fishing against some stiff competition, regardless of the size of the field. Every one of those guys is always in the conversation for being at the top of the leaderboard or holding the checks and trophies at the end of those events out west. Big shout out to James Snyder at Yakabas. Like you said, that is a really cool event. I actually got to watch the national championship live streamed from that event a couple years ago, and it literally got me emotional. We actually weren't planning on going there this year, but we had permitting issues and switched to it. And when James called me, he's like, hey, man, we could just go back to Folsom and do what we did before. I was like, heck yeah. You know, and so I'm glad you guys had a good time. It's good to see some new names at the top of the leaderboard. But now we're looking forward to seeing how you do on Roosevelt.
I got a title to defend down there.
There you go. Go to San Jacinto and go to, Lower Otay and hit some of the other Western events. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'd be kind of cool to see you in Utah if you can make it out there for that event.
But it's on the list.
All right. Well, look, man. Chris, it was awesome having you, man. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
I know you'll get to walk past that trophy every time you get to see it, and it'll remind you. I do have some hardware to send you to fix the top part of the trophy that got kind of I ended up with 2 of them here in Murray, and I couldn't figure out why you didn't have them. So I'll get that sent out to you. Awesome. But that's a pretty substantial, pretty impressive piece of hardware.
Yes, it is.
You mind grabbing that thing real quick and kind of holding it up to the camera so folks can see exactly?
It's kind of in 2 pieces still, but yeah.
But it's substantial, man. You know
what
I'm saying?
It's just over 20 pounds. It's awesome.
Yeah. Altogether, it's like 21 and a half pounds with the mount and everything. So it's substantial. There's some little men on this tour that might need help holding one of those trophies up.
Hey, when James was handing it to me, he goes, it's heavy. And I wasn't quite ready for it when he was giving it to me. So
there you go.
It's definitely got some weight to it.
I'll get those parts up to you. Congratulations. Awesome. And I hope to see you at an event here really soon, man.
Yep. Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, tell Cody I'm coming for him.
All right. We're going to tell him right now. So, all right. Thanks, man.
Hey, Chad, tell us a little bit about that donkey rig thing. I mean, that was kind of unusual, something that happened.
So a donkey rig is basically a double lure. Okay. Most people, especially in the Southeast, refer to a donkey rig as a double fluke rig, meaning you've got a double leader. The way I tie it is I tie the all break knot, and instead of clipping off the tag end, I just tie a lure to that tag end as well. What he was doing is fishing the donkey rig with two Ned rigs on it. So you've got a short leader and a longer leader, and you throw that out and you're dragging along the bottom. And when one fish hits, that other fish usually grabs that second one, or a lot of times you get two fish out of a school at one time. So somebody placed a challenge based on the fact that in one of the photos it showed, or in one of the videos, it showed he had a second fish in the net. Well, Chris videoed the fact that he was fishing with a legal tactic, a legal method, brought the fish in, put one in the net, photographed it, released it, took the other one out, photographed it, and released it, which is not against our rules. Our rules are that you can't retain a fish prior to commencing fishing again. Well, he caught both fish in one cast. And so when he says drama, it wasn't really drama. It was just somebody didn't understand. They jumped to conclusions instead of actually knowing what the rules are. That's all.
Well, but then you go back to the original thing. Like, it's not like anything different than using an Alabama rig or anything like
100%.
that.
100%.
You still, but being able to challenge allows the fact to still go through the whole process. He still filmed. He still did everything he needed to do, and it was a legitimate fish in the process.
The beautiful thing about the challenge concept is it gets it out there. People get it off of their chest, and it doesn't turn into tailgate talk at the end of the tournament where people are like, blah, 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 and that turns into a cancer that bubbles over 2-3 days later. And so we love the challenge concept. We love the process. Again, I don't like it when people go out and bash tournament directors or judges. In fact, we don't allow it in KBF, and if you do it, you're banned. It's not even an option. But it is really cool to see the process work like it's supposed to work, and even play out during a tournament and not throw somebody so far off their game that they implode. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
anyway,
it's great. It's great to see the process kind of play out and work its way through, and everything happens for a reason. But like right now, we're getting ready to talk to Mr. Cody Henley.
Man, here we go. We should have a disclaimer. Warning, the person that you're about to talk to is going to get you jacked up. We probably shouldn't be letting people watch Cody this close to bedtime, to be honest with you. But here we go.
There.
What's up, guys?
Bro, look, I'm still in the process of sorting through footage from the national championship. I want you guys to see this. This is a hard drive. I had to go get another hard drive. Okay. And I also have, hold on, wait for it. I've got I have 3 hard drives from all the footage that these knuckleheads filmed during the 10 Invitational. And about half that footage is from that dude right there.
Hey, how are you?
Right there. That guy right there is about half the footage. And when I say he filmed himself talking to birds, arguing with sandhill cranes, talking to himself, talking to other fishermen, talking to the lures, talking to his rod, talking to his reel, had a conversation with his kayak, had a conversation with his motor. There are so many little outtake pieces that we're cultivating for the Cody Henley highlight reel. I threw a little one out there. He actually said, "Hey, have you seen the one where I was arguing with the bird?" I was like, "Which one?" There's like 3 segments where you're arguing with the bird, but there's one where he's literally the sandhill crane whisperer, and I've never seen this before. But he literally pointed at a bunch of sandhill cranes, and if any of you guys have ever been around sandhill cranes, they are the loudest birds. They will penetrate your soul.
Oh my
and Cody said, "Hey, stop!" And 6 sandhill cranes, shut up. Like immediately. So Cody, man, I would love to selfishly sit here and be like, tell us about the 10, man. Tell us about your experience. But listen, the Cody Henley cat is out of the bag, okay? Cody Henley is not a product of KBF. Cody Henley is a product of growing up in Mississippi, moving to Utah, finding the Lord, getting motivated, and a whole bunch of other things. So I can't adequately tell people about Cody Henley. I tell people all the time, you don't really meet Cody Henley, you experience Cody Henley, okay? So I need you to share with us a little bit of the Cody Henley experience. But tell us about your trip, right? You planned this thing out ahead of time. You called me and said, hey, man, listen, this guy called me and said, when I win the 10, is there anything I have to do the next day? That was 3 weeks before the 10. He didn't call me or text me and say, hey, if I win the 10. Cody, stop me if I'm making this up, right?
No, you're right. I was joking, but
he
now
texted me and said, when I win the 10, I can leave the next day, right? And I said, well, in theory, I'd like to film with you, blah, blah, blah. But Tandy from Yak Rods has already told me that y'all are doing that in advance. I'll get a videographer to follow you during the 10 instead. But this guy called it. He said, I'm coming to win the 10. And when I win the 10, I got to get on the road because I got 2 more tournaments to go win. And pretty dang near did everything he said. So, Cody, talk to us about your weekend down in Kissimmee, and then just talk us through what else happened after that, because it was literally probably the most lucrative, other than Dwayne Taft winning the national championship, right? Or somebody winning a big number at one time. It's probably the biggest tear, both prestige-wise and financially, that anybody's ever gone on in that short a period of time in kayak fishing. So talk to us about the 10, your experience there, and then your road trip picking up money all the way home.
Man, it was epic. Like, where do you want me to start? You want me to start like on the drive down?
Yeah, the whole thing, man. The whole thing.
Dude,
talk about leaving Utah and then get us all the way back.
That me and Cayman were supposed to leave that morning at like 5:30 a.m. That was our plans. Well, I had gotten all my bulk orders set for like all the stores, like all my ice fishing stuff. I was like, I'm done. I got this. And that night when I'm starting to pack up and get everything ready, I look over and I check my website and I had 27 orders. And I'm like, oh my good gosh, what am I going to do? And the next day I was like, dude, I got to get these people their baits. So I got everything shot that day and shipped out. It was probably like $1,400 worth of ice fishing bait. So instead of leaving at 6 a.m., we left at like 7:30 p.m. And I drove till 5 a.m. The drive was miserable. We made it in 40 hours. It was a 32-hour drive. So we only pulled over for 8 hours and actually both of us slept. So it wasn't terrible. It was quick getting down there. And then the way back was a little bit easier because we split it up with all the places that we went. Practice for me didn't go great. It really didn't go good. I've told this to a few people, but I have a buddy down there and I'm just like, I'd always message and be like, hey man, how's the fishing? Tell me, talk to me. How's Big Toe? How's Kissimmee doing? He's like, man, I haven't really been out there. Only thing that's been really playing big for me is East Toho. I'm like, what is that? Where's that? Where do we go there? Like, I don't even think that's in the chain. Come to find out it was in the chain. So I was like, oh, maybe I can fish it. Well, to me, and not huge shout out to Preston Higgins, man. Dude's an awesome man. I actually got him into bass fishing. He'd already been fishing, but like we got really close at church, and then they moved down to Orlando. But before he moved, me and him I took him out frog fishing and got him to catch his first frog fish. He was hooked. That was it, just like me, hooked. And he was just always saying like East Toho is really the only place that I've been. So I was just always checking up on the water temperatures and what was going on and everything with that. And so like first day out, I'm just like, okay, I'll just go there, check it out. And I went out and had a decent day. I mean, it was good. I caught like a 4 or 5, and the rest were like 12, 14 inches. I was like, nope, that's not what I'm looking for. Dude, the next 2 days, a big zero. Zero, not 3, 0. It was garbage. I got caught in a freaking rainstorm out on Big Toho. I got caught in a rainstorm out on Big Toho. Like, it was miserable. Literally, the only thing I remember about that day was I ate seafood on the water. Crab legs. That night before, I went and bought $150 worth of seafood dinner, and they gave me this big box. It was probably bigger than this garbage can. And Oh my gosh, greatest seafood I've ever eaten. It's just, I love seafood, dude. And I literally ate that for like 5 meals. And that's how I justified it. Because 5 divided by 100 is really only like $20 a meal. Like, that's like freaking Taco Bell 3 times, you know? So it's not terrible. But after that, I didn't know what to do. Me and Cayman were kind of splitting off legs. Cayman was hitting up the other lakes that I wasn't hitting, and I was hitting the other lakes that he wasn't hitting. And we were just picking different things apart of what he wanted to fish and what I wanted to fish. And we'd come back that day and like, oh, cool. It was trash. It was terrible. No good bite. We caught 12 inchers. And the Thursday leading into the tournament, Tandy, obviously with Yak Rods, freaking huge shout out to them. Like, I am literally head over heels in love with their rods. Like, can't say nothing bad about them. That we had that videographer coming out, and that was planned. Well, it was planned for us to go to East Toho, right? That's what was scheduled. And that's really the only place I could catch a fish. So, I mean, I wanted to catch a fish on film, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. We'll go there 4 hours in the morning. I'll dip out, go somewhere else. Different day, different dollar. Showed up that morning, first cast, I broke off to a golden shiner jackhammer to a 12-inch pickerel. And I got very upset. I don't know if you saw me slapping the water trying to catch that fish. Okay. So after that, I ended up catching a lot of dinky fish, but I could catch fish, and that's what made me feel comfortable. I was like, I'll just come here and see if I can't pick it apart. Well, a few hundred yards down a stretch, I caught a 5. And then that was it. The first day of fishing, I was on the other side of the lake. I caught the other 5. So I was like, oh, that's 40 inches right there between 2 fish. I'm like, maybe. You never know. So Friday comes around, and I went to Marianne with an A. And everyone and their sister's daughter was there, and they were all just like waving at each other and just like, hey, you want to fish my spot? No, I do not want to fish beside you. Like, there were just so many people, and I just don't feel comfortable about that. Like, it's something I got to work on. But like, I pulled out a 5 and a 6.5 out of there, a 21 and a 3/4 and a 20 and a half maybe, and like another 18. So it was good fishing. Don't get me wrong, especially watching all the 10 videos with what was that, Kenwood fishing the north side, and then Russ Snyder's down on the south side of Marion.
Yeah.
Or was
you were Marion with an O, not an A. The A was the off limits one. You're at O. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
You're trying to jack with people, but I'm gonna keep you honest.
No. You're right. I got confused, man.
Yeah.
So I was at Marion, and
Cam Woods ain't gonna like you giving up his spot either, so he's gonna put me in the headlock now.
My apologies, Ken. My apologies. But that drone footage gives it away.
Right, there's that.
That. And was that the cows? No, that wasn't the cows.
No, it was pretty much the cows. It was the cows.
Oh, it was the cows. I didn't see them. Okay, it was the cows. So that night, I'm not gonna lie, man, I had no clue what I was doing. No idea. I'm like, to me, I would just say, hey, it's a practice day. Practice. I don't care what happens. Practice. Oh, I thought you were about to say something, but it was
I was yawning. Sorry, man.
Okay, cool. The morning of the tournament, man, I prayed probably 50 times. Like you said, like what should I do? Where should I go? And all I could think about was that fish, all those little dinky fish that I'd caught the day before. The problem was we were getting that wind that was coming straight into it. Now, everyone got wind. Don't get me wrong, but I promise you, whatever wind you were getting, I was getting 10 times the amount. I promise. I know that without a shadow of a doubt in my mind. There were 60, 70, 80 mile per hour winds out there. By the time they got to me, I'm serious, dude. I'm serious. By the time it got to me, it was 7-foot rollers. I was surfing out there. I literally could not keep my kayak straight. When I power poled down, my boat just shifted sideways and got locked in that parking pole and literally just started flipping. I'm just reaching over for the reeds trying to pull me back up, and I'm like, I've got to get out of here. So plan A, blown out. So plan B was just go fish. So I ended up just going to some random launch that I hadn't even fished. And for the first 2 hours, I didn't get back on the water and start fishing until 10:42, 10:43. So already my head's messed up. Dude, I scattered around right there at the mouth of where I started fishing. I missed a fish, missed another fish for 2 hours. Like, do I even know how to fish? What's really going on here? And so many things were in my head, and I literally just sat down. I laid my chair back, propped my feet up in the air, and ate a sandwich. No, ate more seafood. Ate shrimp this time. I actually went back to that place, and
what was the name of the place, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh man, you got me on the spot.
The seafood place. I mean, you don't.
Chester's, maybe. No, I'm a liar. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Chester's is like a chicken place, ain't it?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's not it.
Was it Chester's?
Chester's? It might have been.
Chester's sounds right.
Is it? It's like up in Orlando area.
We'll figure it out and post it in the description box after this video.
Yeah, it was Chester's, dude. It was.
So, guys, I want to say something to y'all. As Cody's telling you this story, when you're watching the footage, everything he's saying, he's actually saying it out loud as well while he's on the water. There was about 5 or 6 times he was like, dude, do you even know how to freaking fish? Like slapping the water with his rod. He's like, oh, great. Oh, okay. Yeah, there was a fish I should have caught. It's like the play-by-play that he's giving you now is real time when he's out there fishing. But here's what happened, Cody. And I don't know if you noticed it because, again, you've asked me a couple times for the footage. We're still trying to get it all uploaded. We literally got 3,744 clips from just the people in the tent. It was insane. So it took me 4 days of sitting in the hotel when I should have been out fishing in Florida, uploading crap to these 5 and 7 terabyte hard drives. So what happened, though, is that wind started blowing through those cuts. Cody pulls up into one of those cuts and puts the motor on high and is standing up, just casting. And at first, I literally thought I had hit the fast forward button on the, when you're downloading footage, you accidentally sometimes hit those 2 little triangles and it starts fast forwarding. But it wasn't. It was actually Cody real time fishing. He was casting, burning, casting, burning, and literally the boat was zipping through grass. He was reaching down and steering. It was insane. And then just started putting fish on the boat. And I think you put all 5 fish on the board in an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah. It was quick. I mean, it wasn't a huge limit, but once I started catching that first fish at 12:40,
and then it was bang, 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 bang.
My momentum just changed. Like, did you see me? I just got so excited, dude.
And then that turned into going out and winning day 2, right? Of the Trail Series event?
Yep. I got to go to my actual side that I wanted to.
So go in and win day 2 and then turn around and parlay that into winning the 10. Now, when I texted you and said, hey, I've got a videographer, we need to come follow you, but if you don't want me to, that's cool. You're like, no, man, come on. You sent me a drop pin to the boat ramp that you were fishing. And in the middle of the spawn in Florida, on a weekend, then on a weekday, you're the only person at this boat ramp. At a tournament with 150-something people. That's crazy. It's crazy enough to be at a boat ramp by yourself. But does that not also, to a certain extent, does that sometimes hurt your confidence that you're like, holy crap, out of all these people that are here, I'm the only person at this boat ramp?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, dude. I can't tell you how many times that went through my head. Like, am I missing something?
And when we got there, the first thing I wanted to do was pop the drone up and get some drone shots. And I popped the drone up, and you're like 100 yards from the truck.
Yeah, I wasn't far when y'all first
middle of the day, middle of a tournament, still 100 yards from the truck and catching fish. So talk to me about, was the game plan all along to just fish the jackhammer, or was it the jackhammer became the successful bait, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Like, talk to me about that. Or did you cycle through other baits to get dialed in on it? Or, just talk to me about the bait selection.
I did cycle through a couple things, man. I mean, day 1 of the trail was 54 degrees, 55 degrees. Day 2 of the trail was 42. So things kind of cycled through and swapped for me. In practice, I threw a frog. I caught fish on a ribbit, a buzz toad, So I think it just really came to me, to be honest with you. I think over the time of me throwing all these other things, like, I still carried 9 rods with me, still threw that 10-inch glide bait, but it wasn't the efficient thing for me. The jackhammer just became something that I knew that they were going to eat, and I would throw it until they decided to eat it. I wasn't going to waste any time. There's a few times that I'd flip, but it just seemed I would waste so much time flipping. But then the second I'd pick that jackhammer up and flip it up in there and start stroking on that thing, they would just react to it. It was just a light switch, man. Automatically that switch would cut on and they're ready to eat, but then they're not ready to eat. It was just, I think it just came.
So on your third fish on day 2 of the 10, I'm watching the footage back. Third fish, you actually picked up your flipping rod. You'd caught 2 fish on the chatterbait. You picked up the flipping rod. You threw up into like a cluster of reeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you moved the fish. You literally dropped the rod. You dropped the rod so loud, I thought it should have spooked the fish. Reached back and grabbed the jackhammer rod and flipped it up in there, like you said, and stroked it. Now, I'm not going to tell stuff you don't want to tell. This is your story. But how much of your jackhammer fishing was more of a reaction bite than a cast and retrieve bite? Because a lot of people think of a jackhammer as a wind and grind style bait. And you were winding and grinding, don't get me wrong. But there was a lot of situations where you would move a fish. And a lot of times I don't have this intel because we don't have as much footage. But after having watched back pretty much your whole tournament, it was pretty interesting to see that in a few cases you would move a fish with the flipping rod, which means it was crazy. They weren't really willing to eat because of slow moving, cumbersome baits right there in front of them. But then you throw that jackhammer back in there and stroke it and then catch up to it. What would you say led to that? Was that intuitive? Was that something that you saw in the water? Because that's not a standard way to fish a jackhammer, just in case you don't know. Most people don't do that.
Yeah. No, I think it goes along with you having Chris on the show talking about understanding what those fish want at this time, at this moment. I was just starting off by just retrieving, had a 7.5 to 1. It wasn't until I started stroking, I think with that weather, just malfunction is what you would call it, weather malfunction. It had them so jacked up, especially with being Florida strain. They were just throwed off, man. And when they would get something in there, see, my water was actually very clear too. So I had to go with a very, very natural presentation, whatever. And I could sometimes get those fish to bump out and you could see those reeds move, but I could not get them to hit. I could locate them, but I could never really get them to boom. I think all of my bites, some weren't, because some of them were just a slow retrieve and just getting it thumping. And then every once in a while, just burning it and kind of darts off. Kind of like that. I forget the jackhammer, the Freedom. The Freedom will kind of jump around every once in a while because it's free swinging. I love that. But I think most of it was reaction, man. I think I just kind of woke them up and they're like, hey, dang, yeah, I'm up now. Oh, there's gobbling it up as quick as they can, man, because I could not get a consistent bite on just chunking and winding. It just wasn't for me. It would literally I even had an experience. I was just editing videos this morning and I'm reeling this jackhammer across top water and I'm close to the boat. So I just start skimming it across the water just like a frog. And you hear the fish, boom, blows up on it. It ain't always that this happens, right? What do? Okay, a fish just went up and blew up on a frog or blew up on whatever he thought. He's going to circle around every single time to check what happened. Is it gone or can I eat? So the second I did that, I stopped, literally just doof, 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 and just like that, doof, and every time that jackhammer, I just saw it just jumping left to right, and that fish came right back and just smoked it. And on my hook set, it was so close to the boat, I just yeeted him right up in the air and just kind of reached out and grabbed him. So, I feel like every bit of it was a reaction strike, especially for those big girls. The bug bass, some of them I don't think they were a reaction strike, but those females, every single one of them.
So I released a video today where I completed the Catch 22 challenge down in Florida. And I'm not going to lie, after watching a lot of your videos, I watched a lot of Jimmy McClurkin, Brandon Bissell, a lot of Cody Milton stuff. It was interesting to see how vastly different some of the anglers that did well were fishing. So I actually started with the 3/8 ounce jackhammer, and I started this conversation in a how to fish chatterbaits video because I have people all the time get the weight backwards. They're like, oh yeah, I throw the real light ones. Oh yeah, what size? 3/8. No, that's not the light one. quarter ounce is the light one. No, 3/8 is the light. I'm like, 3/8 is 1/8 away from a half. 1/4 is 2/8 away from a half. So anyway, it's the quarter ounce. So I went out and picked up a couple of quarter ounce and put a little bit bulkier trailer on it. And I went to a lake in Polk County, pretty much the same lake, same area, same lake, different area than where you were at. And I was throwing up by these lily pads and letting it land on one of the lily pads. And as soon as it fell off the lily pad, I'd rip it first, and I'd raise my rod tip and then catch up to it. And in one of the shots on the video that I just released today, where I completed the Catch 22 Challenge in Florida, one of the biggest fish that I had boil on a bait this year, boiled on the bait, but it hit it and turned. And when I set the hook, it just broke off. And I literally knew then, I was like, that's what Cody was doing. I'm going to recreate that a couple more times throughout the year or throughout the week. And I probably put 15 fish on the board by doing that rip or flutter thing that I normally wouldn't have fished a jackhammer that way. That's what I love about tournament fishing, is that there's this information exchange and this sharing. Because you talked about it at the award ceremony. You know, you were pretty forthcoming on every other podcast or live stream. I think you've been on everything except the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon in the last, week. And I'm sure one of them will be calling pretty soon. But if you had it to do over again, you won, right? So it's hard to say that you would do better than you won. But if you had the weekend to do over again, what adjustment would you have made quicker? And if you had it to do over again and you couldn't fish a jackhammer, what would you fish? With everything you know now and those same conditions, let's just say you can't fish a jackhammer. What lure are you picking up?
Lipless crank. Probably a pretty typical stereotype answer, but that's another big reaction bite for me. I love a lipless. I'm not a huge fan of a lipless. I hate trebles. Hate them. Until I got, obviously, Yak Rod's cranking rod and started stop loose. I used to throw a lipless on a medium heavy. I didn't know any better, dude. I just a junk and wine, and it worked, but it only worked so much with that tip. So trebles have a bad taste in my mouth from me losing the fish. So I'm just now getting back used to it for having the right rod set up. I thought the reels were important growing up, but your rod is way more important. Reels are important, but rod is your number one thing that you worry about. But Chad, I don't know if I'd change too much, man. I really feel like I would have pre-fished harder. I got really relaxed during my pre-fish, man. I really did. Like, I kept saying that these tournaments, the Trail 1, Trail 2, Trail 2 Pro, and Invitational didn't mean anything to me. They did mean something to me. They meant a lot to me. And, I kind of, after all that happened on day one, me getting like a little all flustered and getting blown off the water, like it was hard for me. And I gathered myself together, but I really wish I would have fished harder. Going into the event, I had one lure. That's it. What happens when that bite triggers and throws off? I'm done. So, I mean, obviously I could have adapted and figured something out, and I definitely would have tried my hardest to figure something out. But, I think that'd be the only thing if I would have worked a little bit harder. Going into the tournament, I worked my butt off. Every day I read every article you could think about on the Kissimmee chain. I know every species in that lake you can think about and every grass that grows. So, I mean, I wasn't a huge grass person. Now I understand literally everything. I almost said I understand my alfalfa. But I understand the grass and the water now, and that helped me a tremendous. For me, I had to stay away from Kissimmee grass. That wasn't a factor.
So I was going to ask you that because I noticed in watching your footage, and I noticed in even looking at some of the drone footage, you would get over eelgrass or you would get over milfoil and you start fishing. But you literally just bulldozed through Kissimmee grass like it wasn't even there.
Yeah.
And most people are going to fish the absolute heck out of that Kissimmee grass because, well, one, you're in Kissimmee. Two, you're on the Kissimmee chain. That grass, the Kissimmee grass actually gets really good post-spawn. And it starts to be the place that, you catch them. Was that intuitive or was that something you learned in pre-fishing? Was that something you knew going in to avoid this Kissimmee grass this early? Talk to me about that, because I didn't even know if you knew it. I could tell it from watching you that you were just busting through it?
Yeah, I mean, I would still try to cast every once in a while, but you're right. I would turn that motor almost
wide
to
open,
75%. Yeah,
and you would get
and be
closer to
going
the front of the boat and just go through it. You know?
yeah 4 miles an hour and just freaking burning. But no, I didn't have a clue about that. Chad, to me, in my opinion, grass is great, but literally go down there. Where is there not grass?
Right.
Where do you throw? Like, what do you determine? There's trees. There's literally everything you could think about. But I just could not get a healthy bite in the Kissimmee grass. And even then, even my 8.5-to-1 gear ratio, I could barely keep that thing clean. I went through 7 jackhammers. That's how many. I don't know if I just suck at fishing a jackhammer. I broke 7 of them things. Like, literally, I watched your jackhammer video. If anyone hasn't watched it, go watch it. You know, I've already put this split rings down on mine to keep mine from coming undone. One time I just caught a 18 chunk back out there, and then all of a sudden I see the blade shoot that way and the jig head go that way. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, that split ring trick is money. It definitely saves you a lot of baits.
Oh man. So yeah, it was definitely something I learned while being down there. I just couldn't really. I mean, I did catch a few in the Kissimmee grass, but nothing compared to that milfoil.
But it's usually on the edge of the Kissimmee grass, where that Kissimmee grass transitions to either the dollar pads, the pads, or into the milfoil is usually where they're at. You know, on those grass edges.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the story is, but a couple of old timers have told me that the bait fish don't move into the Kissimmee grass until the water temperature's in the 70s, and that's kind of part of the background behind why the Kissimmee grass fishes good later, but it doesn't fish as good earlier. It's still kind of slick. It doesn't have the undergrowth on it that attracts the panfish like the brim and bluegill and sunfish and all that kind of stuff. And then after it does that, that's when it brings in the bigger fish. But I've also said that, and then I've thrown a Mag Fatty Z into Kissimmee grass on accident by trying to cast it, and it landed in the middle and then catch a 6-pounder. So who the heck knows?
Yeah.
What gear ratio reel? Because I saw you actually throwing a jackhammer on 2 different rods in a lot of your footage. Did you have 2 different gear ratios, or did you just basically have the same setup twice?
I had 2 different gear ratios.
Which one did you find the most success on? Because it looked like you were burning the absolute fire out of that thing.
8.3-to-1 or 8.5-to-1.
Okay.
TX2, 13 fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Concept TX2. I'm pretty sure it's 8.3-to-1.
Okay. Yeah, it was fast. Because like I said, there was a couple times I thought I was watching like time-lapse photography. You were fishing so dang fast. Like, it was people don't understand, and they'll understand it when we start releasing some of these videos. But there was times you were catching fish with your motor on high, standing up, running through the grass.
I tried to put it in reverse real quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you only about fell out of the boat half a dozen times, maybe, you know?
That's right, man.
I mean, there was a couple times it looked like you were going. Did you ever feel like you were going out of the boat?
Yeah, one time I think I don't remember what happened. My motor got caught up in grass, and then it just shoved through, and then when it came down, it popped and turned all the way to the left. And I just adjusted my cords, so instead of them turning a little bit, they were literally at full bore, and it just and literally just flipped over front ways, like grabbed luckily my left hand caught on to my rail, or the edge of my seat, the rail on my seat, and caught me from going over.
There's so many little, you hit the grass and shit, just good stuff. Well, look, man, I've watched all your interviews. You pretty much tell the same story every time, because I can see you in your brain going back, to the event. So now I'm going to be a little bit selfish as the KBF guy. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Talk to me about the experience of the 10 itself. Let's get rid of the weekend for the trail and the pro series. Talk to me about that experience, because again, you told me in Utah, I'm going to make it to the 10. Then in Shreveport, you found out you're making it in the 10. And it was probably one of the most emotional reactions I've ever seen an angler have, just being real with you. I've seen anglers win some of the biggest titles in the game and not react the way you did just from finding out that you made it into the 10. So then you've got to wait 3 months, right? And then you go down there and you've got to pre-fish. You've got to do these trail events and the 10 Invitational. I know there's a lot of people that think that the event as prestigious as the 10 shouldn't be that way. It should be, but it is what it is. To me, part of the 10 is the trail, is the 10 Invitational, is that uncertainty,
Amen.
is all of that distraction and all that goodness built into, okay? And then the day off in the middle is a love. People have a love-hate relationship with that. I love the fact that people hate it. You know, just being real with you. I'm a sadistic guy. I get it. But I think
know. Cut the standings off on day one. Leave it off till 6 a.m. Yeah.
Oh, wait. Did I do that?
Yeah, you flipping did that, man.
How did that work out? Because that was a new one for me, right? That was did that play havoc in the house, or was that something that did it matter?
Like, come on. And then one of the times I walked in and, like, I knew that I had at least 90-something inches walking in the house. But, like, I knew there was, like, 4 people that didn't even submit any fish. So I'm like, I'm at least hoping just to be holding top 3. If someone doesn't hit 100, I can get another 90 tomorrow. You know, and then everyone starts throwing these numbers in. And then I walk in and old Stewie says, did you hit 100 today? He said 3 people hit 100. I'm like, no, I didn't hit no freaking 100, man.
I didn't even start that rumor. Somebody else did. You know what I mean?
Man, it was so fun. It was awesome. That day off and then going into the standings off, like all that talk, like, where are you going tomorrow? What you do? I'm going to East Toho with you. Where are you hunting? So, yeah, it was awesome.
So how do you feel about the fact that we did turn? So, because I got to be honest with you, there was a time that morning on day 2, I seriously considered just leaving the standings off the whole second day.
Smacked you. Smacked this shit. That'd have been hard, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what would have been hard about it? Just not knowing?
Not knowing. Like, what do you mean? What would have been hard? Yeah, just not knowing. Like, I had 17 people call me, tell me I was sitting in first. I was losing. I needed to do this. I need to do that. And it just helped me, like, maintain focus. Okay, I need to focus here. I need to focus there. You know, like, I love being able to at least check. You know, I think I check too much, but I'm working on that.
I would say you probably did, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You check too much. You talk to way too many people on the phone. What's more impressive about you winning this event is that you did it talking to like 8 people. You talked to somebody every half an hour or so throughout the tournament.
Yeah.
It was insane how many people you talked to. And you would just stick your phone in and be catching fish. Hold on, I got a fish. In one of the biggest tournaments in kayak fishing, from a prestige standpoint at least, and you're on the phone talking to people, you were calling me. Hey, dude, I got a question for you. What? Hey, man, dude. I'm like, are you calling me during the tournament? Good night. Okay. You called me during the practice. I've got text messages from you where you're in your own head like, dude, I don't know what's going on here. I'm stinking it up. Did I forget how to fish? You know, just all that stuff you've been saying here, but I got the play-by-play via text message all through the weekend. It was actually pretty funny. It was pretty awesome, and it was kind of cool to see the light bulb coming on and coming on and coming on. And, man, I'm not kidding you. When we went to the ramp that you were on, when you sent me the drop pin, I said, hey, man, we're going to come film you. Where are you fishing? You sent me the drop pin. I'm usually pretty intuitive, and when somebody goes somewhere, I go, yeah, I'd go there. And it's also what sucks about when I go to these places, I can't fish the good spots because somebody's always in the damn good spots. I would have never fished where you fished. You could give me 75 years to fish every place I want to fish. And I'm just throwing this out there, and I'm falling on the sword to say it. I would have never fished where you fished. Even if I launched at that ramp, I would have went out, and I would have motored to another part of the same lake. I would have went right past all that crap you were in. And you pretty much won the tournament in 3 football fields.
Yeah. Just on that stretch where me and you had seen each other, and I just went back.
And you told the camera. So, guys, just to set the table for this, we pulled up, and I was like, hey, Cody, we're going to stay out here on the outside of the grass. I'll leave you alone. But when you want a cameraman to push you in or if you catch a fish, he's like, oh, man, send him in. So I send a camera guy in there who's in a kayak. And he goes, hey, I'm going to catch a fish right here. Pretty much calls a shot, throws in there, catches a fish. He's like, hey, you want to get a video of it? So he's not only catching fish, he's being accommodating to the media creation process. He's talking to the cameraman, positioning him where he needs to go. And I'm like, this is like, you know, this guy's hitting on something now. And I think at that point, your confidence meter had pegged out. You pretty much knew what you needed to do. You were catching fish. You're like, all right, I got a limit. I got 6 more. I remember one time I went in one little cut of the reeds, and I went back out and, again, wasted my time in that Kissimmee grass, but I wanted to stay away from you. And I was just out there shooting, talking stuff for my YouTube channel. And you're like, 6 more fish from one cut to the next, a 40-yard stretch. And I look over at Brandon, who's filming, and he's like, I'm like, dude, this guy's literally figured something else out on a whole nother level, you know? And I don't think that there was I don't know that there was another angler completely as committed to that shallow bite as you were. I know that there were some anglers that would kind of move in and check shallow and go back out, and move in and check shallow and go back out. But you were pretty well locked down on less than 2 foot of water.
Yeah. And they kept reloading. Every time I would go back, I'd catch them in the exact same spots coming through.
And different fish every single time. And it was those 3 little feeder cuts that were going back into these pockets that those fish were loading in, moving up into the flats. And when you'd catch them, I think they'd cycle back out. Every now and then you'd see them scatter a little bait, and then they'd move back up into the flats. Cody, man, the floor is yours, my friend. Let's take this thing home. If you had to say one of the most memorable things about the trip, not necessarily the 10, but then going on to Toledo Bend and going on to, what was the other, how many events did you hit on the way home?
So I did the Bassmaster. I didn't do super great there. Actually, me and Cayman, I threw Cayman's shot of doing good there because I actually didn't go to pre-fish. We skipped our pre-fish day. I stopped by and surprised my mom and my mama and papa and spent the night with them. And family comes first. So I hadn't seen them in a long time. So I went and said hey to them, stayed the night with them, and left the next morning.
And where's that at?
Mississippi.
What part?
Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay,
Crystal
cool.
Springs.
Yeah.
So I went through there, and we got caught in that crazy ice storm, like going 20 miles an hour. Trucks were flipped everywhere. Day 1 of the Bassmaster, I got skunked. I mean, hardcore, just got wrecked. I had 1 bite all day long. Day 2, I actually caught 2 fish, like a back-to-back, 19 and 18.75. I'm like, I figured something out, throwing the jackhammer. And those 2 fish put me up to 33rd place. So, like, I started adding things up. And I'm like, I can cash a check. I didn't cash a check. I didn't catch another fish the rest of the day, man. I did everything. I tried Panoptics. I think I took 50th out of 150. And then I went to Texas, Louisiana, to Toledo Bend, and I took a second out of the 200 people in there.
So, man, that's impressive. A second out of 200, winning the 10, and doing all of that inside of 2 weeks is insane. What did you catch your fish on Toledo Bend?
Burning a jackhammer.
All right. Well, either this is the greatest lie ever told, and he's sticking to it, or it's the single greatest domination of one particular pattern across 50-degree water temperature differences in 2 different states. And yeah, man. What was the most memorable part about the Toledo Bend thing? By the way, people always ask me if you had one lake you could fish for the rest of your life, blah, blah, blah. From a nostalgia standpoint, it's Toledo Bend because I grew up there. I caught my first topwater fish on Toledo Bend. I'm from about 2 hours from there. My dad used to do some commercial catfishing on there and things like that. And then I saw ABC's Wild World of Sports when Zell Rowland caught a fish on a topwater, and I had to buy one. And then I went to Toledo Bend like 3 times until I finally caught a fish on a topwater. I got hooked on fishing on Toledo Bend, and in the Navy, crisscrossing back and forth from east to west, and then being stationed in Corpus Christi, I spent a lot of time on Toledo Bend. That's one of my favorite lakes. Talk to me about Toledo Bend. How was that experience? I mean, obviously it was pretty good if you won second, but
No, it was phenomenal. It was 100% phenomenal. That's really like the first Hobie event I've ever had the opportunity to go to. Hats off to them. Like, they run a great series. Just like first time being there, first time ever going to the lake. I went upriver, found a good shallow bite. The bite died off for me during practice. Got worried, but I was super content, Chad. Like, the most epic experience of my life was the 10, and that's thanks to you and your crew and your wife. Like, that's not all I have to say about that before we go. But I was really happy with where I was, man. So I just knew there were big fish up the river and off in those back pockets, and they were just getting warm. And I just rolled and took my chances out there, and I laid into them, man. I really laid into them. I left early on day one. It kind of came back and ate me in the butt, but I'm super happy with the way that I did. Rolando Nandine deserves that by far. Homie caught most of his fish on Panoptics. Like, a dude's an absolute stick. Everyone knows him. If you haven't heard of him, go look him up. And day one, when I left my spot, it just wasn't a big area. It was smaller than 3 football fields. It was 2 football fields. And there was probably 10 to 12 kayaks and 5 boats. And they were all boat tournaments. So I knew every one of them had fish in the live well. So I dipped out of there after catching about 26, 27 fish, and got back to the ramp, and everyone's like, oh, I didn't get a limit. Oh, I got a little small limit. Oh, I didn't get a limit. I'm like, I could have stayed back there and hit up 95, 96, but then I might not have caught fish the next day. So it all panned out. Next day, bite was tough, really, really tough. And Jackhammer, though, once again, I wasn't doing good. I had a bag of 14s, said a prayer. God said, turn around. I turned around and stuck a 21 and a quarter, came back, stuck an 18 and a 17. And then me and Rolando just going back and forth. And he came out with it, man. But it was awesome. It was literally amazing.
So I was actually going to ask you if there was more pressure going into the event because you had just won the 10, but you already answered the question. You actually said it gave you a certain level of contentment going there. Was there any difference to how you were received by the anglers having just won the 10? Was there any situations there with that, or was it just all love?
No, I feel like it was all love. I had any problem with anyone, really. Like, the group's awesome. Everyone, a lot of people recognized me. I was like, hey, congrats, Cody. I'm like, hey, I appreciate it. Don't know who you are. I wish I could say your name too, but I mean, seriously, thanks so much. So I was super grateful for all the people. Like,
so nobody gave you the stink eye at the ramp, and they're like, oh, great, the 10 guys at my
G
spot.
did. G Money. I'm not Garrett Way, not Garrett, not him. Guillermo Gonzalez, he gave me that stink eye. He says, you going down, fool. You ain't no good. Go down today, boy. No, he didn't. He's a good dude. Me and him actually started on the same strip. So he was like, I got to my spot, and he asked me, hey, man, you mind if I start here or start across? I'm like, dude, you start wherever you want, man. I'm cool. We'll fish it together and see which one can pull the bigger ones out. So,
nice.
No, it was awesome.
Well, man, congrats on all your success. I'm going to just let you take this thing home, man. You got basically up to 7 minutes. We're going to try to cap this thing at an hour and a half.
Okay.
Bring home whatever you want to talk about, the Hobie, the Bassmaster, the 10, whatever, thanking sponsors, thanking family, whatever. The floor is yours. And man, Randy, when he's done talking, just take us on out of here, man.
I don't have 7 minutes worth of stuff, but I do want to give a huge shout out to you, man. That was dude, that was epic. Like, I'll sit back and I'll think about it. I might cry. So I don't want to cry, but man, that was a bigger dream than me than hoisting a Bassmaster Classic trophy than being on the stage, man. Just having the opportunity to have that camaraderie with those guys, for you and Gene to put in the work to teach us, like, what do we need to be doing with this? How do we need to approach this? What do we need to do with our pro staff? Like, how do we need to make videos, man? That was just the time that y'all put into it and taking us out to eat. Like, hats off to Christy for all that she did, man, to you, to everyone. Like dinner was served every night at 6 o'clock, even media day, man. That was, I don't know if you remember that one, but I got off the water. I was typing in GPS location. I was going to be 2 minutes late. My wife had just left. She met me at the ramp and gave me a hug and told me that she loved me. And my phone died. And then my phone wouldn't cut back on. So then I'm freaking knocking on people's door inside Walgreens parking lot, Walgreens pharmacy. Like, can I use your phone? And they think I'm some drug dealer that they're trying to get robbed. So they're freaking out. I'm like, do I look that rough? Like, what's wrong? I know I haven't shaved lately, but what? I don't understand. And finally get someone's phone. My wife comes back and she's picking me up. And then in the middle of all this, she was just going to take me to where we were. And then my phone died. I'm like, dude, could anything, no. And then my phone cut on. I was like, could things go any worse? I'm like, whoa, don't say that. Nuh-uh. Then pulling into the thing, the cop stops to me. He's like, why don't you have a flag on your kayak? I'm like, what do you mean a flag? What am I supposed to flag? It's sticking in. He's out here with a measuring tape, measuring my kayak, how far it's sticking out of my truck. I'm like, hey, officer, is anything else you can get me for today? Okay, thanks, sir. Have a good day. So hats off to y'all for putting up with me being late too, man. That was, if for anyone that's having a dream or goal to be there, dude, I had greatest thing and experience I've ever had in my life. Like, that is no question the greatest achievement that I'll probably ever achieve as a professional kayak angler or as a kayak angler. And you don't have to be a professional. I just like that word. I might not even be a professional. I just know that this is my goal and my dream. And that video that Tanny and them made, it says I am a professional. So, technically it says
it's on a video, and you've made money doing it. So therefore you're a professional.
That ding. That's right. So really, like, if anyone's afraid, like, should I sign up for this extra? Take it slow. Like, sign up for one trail. Maybe don't sign up for everything. Cool, $115. Just take that jump, man. Because I'm telling you now, that drive down to the national championship might be a lot as well. But do what you can to get down there, because that literally, I can't even express how awesome that was being with those guys. I really thought those people were going to be a bunch of stuck-up dudes, that thought that their stuff doesn't stink. Man, every night they came home, told me what they caught them on, how they caught them, what they were using. I've got lures from Matthew Scott to show me what he was using. I can't tell you, but he showed me. And, I literally at one point, I'm like, I think they messing with me. I think they confused. They trying to confuse me. I'm not doing it. Nope, not today, Satan. And come to find out, they were being honest. They were 100% being honest. I'm like, dang, dude, these guys are awesome. Like, I can't even express. Like, that was it was a blast, and that's my number one goal. You'll get on my phone in my notes, and my number one goal says, make it to the 10 for the rest of my life. So I plan to be there every year from here on out, no matter what it takes. And Kentucky Lake might be a hard one for me, but I might go down 3 weeks early. I don't know yet. We'll see. Maybe 6 weeks.
Well, man, I appreciate you being on here. I don't think we can end it any better than that. Randy, why don't you take us on out here? Cody, love you, bro. Can't wait to see you.
Hey, love you, man. See y'all.
Later.
Hey, I just want to tell you, it only takes one event to change your entire life. That's what's going to make it happen. Always enjoy your time out on the water, and remember, you're going to have that one opportunity to knock it out of the park. Enjoy yourselves. Get out in the water. Good luck to everybody on Lake Murray, and enjoy yourself. Have fun, and always get out there.
Oh, yeah. Fish on.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Good night. Look at that tank.
That's a toad, brother.
Golly.